session coming up next brings together experts from AI strategy and technology background, and they will focus on strategic discussions on various dimensions of innovative models and approaches for enterprise-wide AI adoption. So our next session is aptly titled An Unplugged Debate: AI Applications and Adoption, Innovative Models and Approaches. And for this unplugged debate, who do we have? Well, we have the CTO, the Chief Technological Officer of Microsoft India, with us. As National Technology Officer for Microsoft India, she is responsible for helping our customers and partners across industry and the government drive innovation and growth through tech intensity in the age of Industry 4.0. Her 25 plus years career spans business and technology with strategy consulting at the Boston Consulting Group and IBM Global Business Services, operations and sales at startups, and R&D at AT&T Bell Laboratories. So please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the CTO of Microsoft India, Rohini Srivatsa. Welcome to Rohini. And we up next have our next speaker, who is the Chief Data Officer, Z and Z5. She is a senior executive with 14 years of rich leadership experience in establishing data as a culture at large organizations, successfully building and leading center of excellence through creative methods, leading business strategies through data-driven actionable insights. She holds a postgraduate degree in quantitative econometrics, statistics, and computer science from ISI Kolkata. At Z, as Chief Data Officer, she is building Center of Excellence for Z, spanning across broadcast, digital, movies, and business, both domestic and global businesses. Her works span across business intelligence, business analytics, predictive and prescriptive modeling, artificial intelligence, market research and digital lab, and large data infrastructure to build Customer 360 with data governance. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Chief Data Officer, Z and Z5, Ujjayini Mitra. And also joining us in this unplugged debate is the Head Strategy and Operations, Walmart Global Tech India. He leads the Head of Strategy and Operations at Walmart Global Tech India. In a career spanning 3 decades, he started as a computer scientist with the Defense R&D, which is DRDO, and subsequently moved to software product industry, where he has led in technical and leadership roles in high-tech domains at companies including Siemens Telecom, Philips Healthcare, Huawei, McAfee, Netscout, Yahoo, 24/7 Innovation Labs, and NerdWallet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Head Strategy and Operations, Walmart Global Tech India, the Thagat Varma, more popularly known as TV. So I'm going to hand this over to the 3 lovely speakers. But before I do this, may I please remind you once again, ladies and gentlemen, time is of essence. So when you hear this particular sound, you will know that it is time for you to quickly wrap it up in 3 to 5 minutes maximum. This is the sound you will hear. Okay, so over to the speakers for the unplugged debate.
Great. Thank you, Riaz. And definitely looking forward to this conversation Friday evening. Wonderful conversation with my colleagues, TV and Ujjayini. And this is a very interesting format because the 3 of us will be chatting. Let me kind of get started and then I'll, ask for comments and you'll go around the table here. So the topic that I've been attending some of these sessions this afternoon, and it's been wonderful to listen, and it's such a close-knit community. It's really great to hear people's views. I think the discussion we've been having a lot about AI adoption at scale, etc. And I wanted to kind of almost challenge that. I wanted to challenge that to say, why? Why should AI be adopted at scale? Right? And in a way, in my mind, some thoughts were going, and it's almost like a hypothesis that it should be, and I'm questioning it. But I think the point I'm thinking about is there are certain technologies which have been called general purpose technologies. And there are very few that qualify in that realm. Things like steam engine qualify, the internet qualifies. And and the term means a technology that has very widespread impact on society, economies, at a scale that's why it's called general purpose. I would argue AI is called a general purpose technology. And that is probably why we are talking about adoption at scale. The second point I would put out there is whether adoption is happening or not, but I think there is a lot of value that has been pegged by multiple companies like the McKinsey's and all the thought leaders out there to say that there's a huge economic value at the end of the tunnel when you adopt AI at scale, right? So people are saying, am I going there to capture that value or not? Am I on track? I think the third element, which is very interesting and I find very exciting, is there are areas of our society where problems have not been solved so far. And let me give an example of people with disabilities, right? The ability for somebody with vision disability to be able to have AI help them see and read out what they are seeing is a game changer, right? You could not have done that. And same thing, let's say somebody who's be able to read a menu, be able to somebody who's deaf to be able to so visually show what the person is hearing. I mean, there's so many examples, right? So that's just one example. There's so many examples of problems that would not have been solved. So I feel that there's a need to question the why. Why are we saying it should be adopted at scale? And I kind of sort of answered it to say, I feel there's something inherently hypothetical we have inside. But maybe let me ask the TV, do you think we are on track to adopt AI at scale? And what's going on?
It's a great question, Rohini. I mean, in fact, in some discussion some time back, I was actually posing it, which is like, imagine we are not in 2021, but we are in 1921, and the electricity has recently been discovered, as in a couple of decades back, and Edison has just made the light bulb. And imagine all of us are having this panel discussion, and we are saying electricity should be adopted at scale, right? I mean, to me, this is exactly like the point you said of a general purpose technology. How come we never say that, hey, we are a electricity company, or we are a steam company, but then we say we are an AI company, and we really are making the means as an ends by itself. To me, being an AI is really more of an enabler. And again, we are, I think sometimes this phrase is actually symptomatic of the whole AI sprinkle mindset, which is like, hey, somehow I just magically make it as an AI sprinkle, so that I'm probably going to get a valuation higher up, or I'm just going to, because it's a fad, because it's in the market, sort of a thing there, like you said. I think the key thing to me really is solving the real problem. What is the problem that you want to solve? I was reading one of the articles, I think it was IDC data, or one of the analyst data, which said only 14% of the companies are really using technology, and they put them in the bucket of leaders, and remaining are kind of under leveraging. Now, yes or no, that again could be another issue, whether they should do it for the sake of doing it. My point is, the remaining 86% of the companies haven't stopped, they have not stopped existing, they have not stopped growing, they have not stopped thriving, they have not stopped expanding their businesses there. Maybe it works for them, maybe it works for them at some point in time in the future there. But the point is, it should not just be a mad race, just because I have to hop onto the bandwagon of technology and new shiny thing. I should do that. So I'm with you on this one, Rohini. I mean, the why AI. Maybe I'll strip out the scale part of it and say why AI itself. We should be questioning it and saying, what is it that we are missing right now from the table, that we should really be looking at, saying why AI? So in fact, I want to kind of pass on that to Jaini by asking that, what is your perspective when we come to, like, you are working in the entertainment industry, where you basically you are using technology there. What are the use cases do you see that cannot be solved by quote unquote pre-AI era, which have to be done in a post-AI era? If you would like to share something on that.
Absolutely, Tathagata. And I think TV and Rohini, this is a very valid question. And when I'm talking to the top leaders and actually asking for funds to build any of such solution, I always get the same question, like, is AI the solution that we have to adopt, or are there alternatives that we could have done otherwise, right? So I'll give you, one specific example. So this is like, the TV serials which are coming every episodes Monday to Friday, right? and Z having almost 12 different languages, each language is having many such TV serials which are pouring into the Z5 OTT platform. So what we found, close to 500 plus hours of content that is coming regularly on the platform. And there is a summarization system that we offer to our consumers, because our consumers on the digital side are not necessarily interested to watch the complete stretch of it. They want to watch a crux of the story, say 5 minutes of it. For a long time we ran a human method, human process through that. So there were good number of editors who will watch that content day in day out, every day, create that synopsis or the or that summarized version of the video by cut, copy, paste, smoothing, all sorts of processes, and then they will kind of load it on the platform. Over time we observed that these people, it became a very mundane job for them, and they were not necessarily enjoying doing it. They are creative people, they want to do creative work. Now these people, suddenly it became they were just cutting the first 5 minutes of the video and they were uploading it. And so when we did a quick quality check, we suddenly found, it's not an error, but it's like a human tendency that I am doing a mundane job. What about it? I just got the first 5 minutes and upload. I should be happy about it, right? Then we said, okay, is there a solution that I can create which will actually create that summarization from the bigger video to a smaller video? The second one, can I create, because when these people, the consumers, are watching the content, probably Rohini watched the content for this different reason versus the same movie or the same content I or TV watches for a very different reason. So a question of a personalizations come. Now, how many personalizations or the customizations that a human can do? If I have every content needs to be then multiplied by at least 10 different personalization, it starts becoming exponentially growing. And that many human to train, bring quality control and ensure that consumer experience at the end was becoming very difficult. And then we invested, okay, let's see if AI can solve. We got some solution, and when we then shared with the editors, they said more than 90% of the cases it is giving you very good solutions. And then we said, can we create it like a recipe that my audience can choose what personalized content I want to watch, and they can automatically create that content around content and will be able to watch it. Now such kind of power giving back to the hand of viewers is very difficult, because otherwise you are creating only static content. But when it becomes the power to the end, I think that's where AI becomes a very crucial part, and that's where scale and quality, all those things, and unbiased thinking comes. Because the same content I'm summarizing, I'll tell a different story and another editor will tell a different story. Every time editors churn, we find a very different story coming up. So all those controls, quality could have been given a bigger value through AI. I think yes, purpose is very important and it can be driven.
Great.
So my
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead TV.
No, I was actually curious to because the 2 points that you said, I wanted to actually, I was like, it piqued my interest and wanted to also get Rohini's point of view. So one was on the cost that you said, which is very interesting play, because we always hear about the cost part of it, like replacing a human operator who has a bias and a cost. The two elements are there. Now, I have always been interested to see the economics of man versus machine, or human versus machine in West versus India is very different. So 1 hour of human time versus 1 hour of algorithmic time in US has a different cost equation, or Europe has a different cost equation than in India. Now, is it really skewing the adoption rates adversely? That's number one. And number two was on the bias, the point you talked about, Jenny, which is like, we tend to think that all the human bias will be eliminated by the algorithmic bias, but there is always an inherent amount of bias that is there. Either it's my going in hypothesis as a researcher or as a machine engineer or something. So I was like interested to explore that topic further. I don't know if Rohini, you would like to also share your thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's point you're making, TV, about the
about the human versus machine equation in a particular job or task. The example that Ujjeni you made was a very interesting example because the speed at which and the scope and the scale, I'm using the three words, right? Speed, scope, and scale, at which certain decisions have to be made about recommendations, etc., is very, very high. And in some ways, it's a human is just getting, it's tiring, it's fatigue, human fatigue, and therefore errors, right? All of those are coming in. That's a perfect example where you actually want to, use AI and therefore, in fact, bring the humans to a level of work that is more creative, much more value add, uses the humans, all the skills of empathy and creativity and nonlinear thinking and all that. But the point that TV you are making is a good one about, the Indian context versus the West. I'm just generally overall using the term West, right? I think in India, we have this huge human capital. And the human capital is of various different skills. And we also have a lot of sectors which are deeply in need of services. Healthcare, education. We are all aware of the tremendous gap of access to these services. I think we have to think of a way where AI is used in India in a different way. I would call it augmented intelligence, wherein you are able to use people in the field, for example, in health, where you're able to use people in the field who are potentially not medically, doctors, but are enough technically trained to use AI systems perhaps for diagnostics, at least first level diagnostics, so that the pressure on specialist hospitals is reduced. And we know many techniques on, diabetic retinopathy, many things are coming up, right? Wherein a technician can use an AI enabled system in an augmented intelligence fashion and take the services which are so direly needed. Same thing you look in education. If you can help a teacher with all the curation of content, all the personalization material from different languages, see, the language barrier goes away. And now you have all the content. Now the teacher has the empathy, the time to spend time with a child, right? So this is the beautiful human augmented intelligence is what the model that India needs. And I think that's where then we have to think about issues that how do we make sure our people are getting skilled up? How do we make sure that we are not adopting these models by cut and paste, but really adopting them for India and the whole value chains that go along with it, right? And I think I'll just throw back the question at maybe Ujjeni, when you think about, I think that TV, you brought up the issue of bias, etc. That's a very big topic, but I think in my mind, those issues are important, but they're important in few places. They are not general purpose importance things, right? Some of the previous panels are talking about interpretability, etc. I don't think I particularly care why I'm being shown a particular example for a movie that I should watch. But I do care if somebody tells me that you will suffer a heart attack in the next 2 years as to why you're saying that. Very different use cases, right? So maybe your thoughts, Ujjeni, on how you think about issues when you apply AI in terms of, is it doing the right thing, or are there concerns to be thought about?
I mean, absolutely placed. And I think I'll just go back to the previous question that TV was talking. I think the cost is, of course, a very, very big important point, and also whether AI versus human doing a better job, and can AI really learn at that level, and especially in media when we are talking creative part. For example, we found that when we are doing a content meta creation, right? So I have a news and I am creating multiple meta tags for that. There are certain amount of that meta tag could be created by AI, but then there are other nuances, which is the localized nuances. How do someone understand the underneath storyline and not just going by what is spoken, right? How can someone explain those in the meta? Because if I don't have those meta, even future AI creations will be very difficult. And when these are taken beyond English, probably going to the southern languages, even languages like Bhojpuri, I mean, AI, I think, yet to understand those kind of regional languages. The northeastern languages, Khashi and those language, we need people to actually annotate those contents manually, and they are able to do far better creatively because they understand the context, understand the localized culture to be able to annotate those informations. So something which is okay in one culture may not necessarily be okay. And now, say for example, when we are creating a consumer user driven content where users are actually posting, like Instagram, like we are creating one such platform. In every minute there are thousands of consumers are posting thousands of contents, and I have to moderate those. There are human who are sitting behind and actually being able to moderate. It will be very difficult, and then a AI system has been managed to create, but that is not 100% accurate. Now, exactly where Rohini was talking about the augmented services, I think that's where both of this, the AI system and the human, both actually works together to make the decisions far better. And say, for example, AI has rejected someone's content that we cannot upload it. Yes, the user, the creator, actually wants an explanation that I believe it is right and why you are saying that you cannot upload. What is that it has flouted? What is that rules or the compliance that it has flouted? Same content may be okay for one region, say for UK or Europe, it is okay. When I'm actually putting it for my MENA countries consumers, it's absolutely not okay. So now, when all this multitudinous is actually coming, cultural biases or cultural thinking, I don't call it a bias, but it is a cultural thing. When those are coming, those really has to be thought very differently. AI not necessarily always will be able to do that, or probably it hasn't yet reached that level, and human has to be augmented in those places, and over time probably AI will be able to learn those things.
I think that's a great point, TV. Maybe you could share some examples of where you are seeing interesting use cases where AI is the right thing to do versus augmentation, and is that a way to think about adoption? I mean, is that an important enabler for adoption?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm taking like a comparison. So, for example, if we see in the Western world, 40 or 50 or 60 years back, or if we go a century back, close to 40 or 60% of the education was doing agriculture, and they were it was basically in some sort of a subsistence farming for the nation. But today in the US, only 3% of the nation does farming, and the agriculture produce is like 120% or 150%. So now, if we come back and bring, like, for us, maybe it is a different solution issue. But when we look at the India at scale challenge there, I see two contrast or two dichotomies. One is we have 40% plus people engaged in rural economy or agriculture economy or grassroots economy. Um, how can we really enable them and use the technology to bring them out of the debt trap and the other challenges that are there, because in some sense they are not ready to embrace the technology because of not being at the level of education that it might need. Secondly, in terms of even a semi-skilled training, they might be lacking it. And if we straight away look at a replacement paradigm, that doesn't work for them. And to me, the replacement paradigm is actually has to go hand in hand with the leisure society perspective, which seems to be picking up steam in the Western circles, which is that we human beings were really designed or created to enjoy life and leisure society. And then if we are freed up from the daily chores, then maybe we have to be supported by a universal basic income, because a lot of quote unquote less cognitive work will be done by the algorithms. And we have to watch, like, for example, in case of Ujjaini's thing, if I can take the liberty of saying ZTV, so that we can consume it. So you have to have an army of consumers, but then who is going to support them? Maybe the white collar workers have to be supported in some sense by a universal basic income. But what about the blue collar workers, or what about the lower strata of society? So that is the issue that I am kind of at a crossroads to figure out what is the right way to look at it.
Yeah, no, I think you're bringing up some really interesting points because there are multiple scenarios that some of the experts of AI, and when they think about where human society is going, and how it will evolve. So I hear you, but I think it's you know you are right that whether we go with universal basic income or not, I think the more immediate concern, if I were to put it that way, right, is the digital divide, is the inequities that we see in the society, is the uh, lack of opportunities. And to me, I think feels like before we get to the point about wherein we have a really divided society, we need to actually in a way prevent it. We need to make sure that we have, even on the journey to getting there, right, the inequities that are solvable. And in many ways, I think, not to say AI is a panacea, but for example, the earlier point I was making about language barriers, with removal of language barriers, with removal of, for example, a disability or different ability barriers, with removal of, for example, learning disability barriers, right? You have a shot at bringing people who were potentially excluded from the economic cycle into the cycle. And I think that is the opportunity we have to go after.
For example, I have seen one example where AI actually was reducing the cost also. So these are, I mean, for our platform, consumers of the contents as well as the advertisers are equal consumer. When we were talking to the small and medium enterprises, a very small regional enterprises, and they wanted to go national level and required to translate their ads in a different language, it was very difficult that they will find the right studios, right people at scale to be able to create that. When we created such, small 15 seconds videos which they can translate in any language and go, I mean, having a very large impact of their business, they found it's an amazing solution for them, and it was far lesser cost for them to adopt it.
That's a
Yeah, and
great point. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Tim. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying to kind of also look at what could be the ways in which we can put AI to use for a social good as well. I think the key to me would be also to say, while we solve the industrial problems in terms of entertainment or streaming videos and other things, which is obviously the major component to the economy, I think, as you rightly said, Rohini, the digital divide or the cognitive divide to me is a bigger issue because we cannot leave anyone behind. We must use this is an opportunity for the first time in that we are part of an industrial revolution where we have opportunity to take everyone together. The way I look at it is, I think we need to come together and say what are some of the leakage points for the lowest socio-economic strata. For example, an average farmer would like to get, if they could only get a heads up of 1 week ahead of time on the weather and the rains, they could do so it better. If they had information about the mandis, then they can sell it better. If a carpenter had the information where is a better source of livelihood, they could go and do that. So I think we should, there are obviously a lot of work happening, but I think these could be the first world or the third world problems, if you will, which actually will really make sure that we are taking the benefits of AI down to the trickle and make sure everybody is benefiting from it.
Absolutely. Ujjani, if you want to share some thoughts, then I'll, give in my final thoughts and we'll close the panel.
So I'll just share a very small story, and that's very much connected to what Tathagata spoke. This is a small Himalayan mountain village, and I work for the girl child's educations there. Today, and this is such a mountain logged space, it is impossible for them to every day come down, walk to a school and go for schooling, and beyond the age it becomes even difficult for them. But a small amount of internet and the education, the online education platform, and the recommendation of the right content that they are looking for can literally transfer the life for such people. And I have a girl there who actually has chosen to learn French language, and currently she is doing a translator's job in the Ladakh tourism office. And I think, the amount of AI or the, such kind of technology can create such life changing values for people. I absolutely believe we have to look for more of such things.
No, absolutely. And I think just one more example I would give is that in India, the very silent revolution that's happening on base of the India stack on how payments is happening, how some of the data empowerment architectures are moving. There's huge impetus going on the in the fintech world for financial inclusion. So we are going to see a tsunami of innovations that will bring people who don't have access to financial services that you and I take for granted on the basis of AI towards financial inclusion. So I feel there is a lot that can be done and should be done, and really exciting times ahead. Back to you, Riaz.
Thank you so much, Rohini, Ujjaini, and of course TV as well, for this unplugged debate. Has really been unplugged, and what a way to combat all of the thoughts that you'll have together and putting it in a very contextual way. So thank you so much. Please enjoy the rest of the week ahead, and we'll see you back again at the next 3AI congregation. So that said, ladies and gentlemen, you please stick right here. We're going to move over to the next session, and I'm going to request Console to do that, and we'll be back in 15 seconds.